James Cole, Sky Sports News. Go ahead, James.
Hi, Chris. How are you after your period in isolation?
Yeah, good, thanks. Nice to be back out. Nice to be let back into the wild. Yeah, it was obviously a tricky 7 days. I mean, people are quarantining all around the world at the minute. I don't know how the guys did it going to Australia and doing 14 days, but no, good to be back out. Good to be amongst the group, and obviously good to be back on the training field doing what I'm supposed to be doing, obviously, which is what I'm here for.
Yeah, how tough was it being confined to your room for 7 days? How did you keep yourself physically and mentally okay?
Yeah, I mean, it was fine. Obviously, I mean, you get through it. I suppose it was more I didn't expect it more than anything. Obviously, turning up, we kind of had 2-3 days in mind. And obviously, when we got the news regarding Mo, that obviously got pushed back for me as well. But yeah, I kind of tried to keep myself busy. Plenty of Netflix, plenty of PlayStation, talking to the family, talking to friends back home, and doing the odd session here and there. Well, I tried to get a fitness session in on my balcony daily. I got bands and med balls and stuff dropped to my room, which obviously had to be sanitized. But yeah, all that sort of stuff really. I just tried to keep myself busy as much as I could, but certainly caught up on some sleep as well.
And is it all worth it, do you think?
Oh, I mean, yeah, of course. Yeah, we're here to play cricket. It's different times, obviously, and don't get me wrong. There's times when you start thinking, is this a bit over the top and things like that? But everyone's going through the same. We're all learning day by day, and the most important thing is we're getting the opportunity to play cricket. So yeah, I think it is worth it. I think we've got no other choice at the moment as well. We're very fortunate the fact that we can still travel and play, international sport. There's a lot of people that are dying to see sport and are desperate to see sport. So we're part of that entertainment business, and we've got a job to do.
And can I just ask you about the incident involving Steve Smith in Sydney? What you made of his shadow batting on Pants Guard?
Yeah, look, it's. I'm sure there's people have got their opinions on it. It's not the first time that I've seen something like that happen. So with the fact that it's such a big series, a big player, in a big moment, it's probably meant it's been blown up a little bit. But look, whether he had there's only one person that knows whether he was doing it to affect the opposition batsman or not, and that's Steve himself. You can look at it a few different ways. You could say that he was just shadow batting and doing what he would normally do, and it was a bit of a habit. Or you could say that he was trying to distract Rishabh from getting out of his zone, so to speak. But everyone's got their own opinions. But it's one of those things that a lot of the time something like that might go unnoticed. But it's such a big occasion, it's easy to jump on it.
Yeah, you don't think it's Australia up to old tricks again, then?
Look, it's hard for me to sit from here watching from a million miles away and say he was doing it to get into the Indian batsmen's minds, potentially. But as I said, there's only one person that knows exactly what he was trying to do. So I know Tim Payne came out and backed him as you'd expect him to do. But I think that's all I can say on the matter, really.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Okay, who'd like to go next?
I'm here, Danny, if that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
Okay, Chris, hello. Hope you're doing all right.
Right,
hello, mate. Are you playing? Do you know yet? I mean, you've been put up today. Has there been any sort of team announcement?
No team announcement that I know of. It's obviously still been 2 days out from the test. We've still got training tomorrow, so I'd have thought guys will know a lot more in their own practice tomorrow. That's usually the general feel, unless we've had actually quite a bit of rain out here over the last few days. So whether that will have a indication as to whether Joe and the management leave it a little bit later to decide their 11, I'm not sure. But I mean, I'm certainly up against it in terms of time. I only had my first bowl yesterday, when obviously the guys have been bowling probably pretty much for nearly a week before I have, which obviously frustrating from my side of things. Obviously, it kind of just puts me back a little bit. The chances of me playing are probably quite slim. when you haven't played much cricket leading into this either, it probably be potential injury risk. But that decision hasn't been made, I don't think, just yet.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I mean, I was going to ask if you actually feel if you are acclimatised. I mean, it must have been a very strange week that you've had. I mean, just to have, just sitting in there and night becomes day and day becomes night and so on. I mean, heavy legs and everything else.
Yeah, definitely. And I think more so in these conditions, you know what it's like out here. It is hot, it is sweaty, and it does take a little bit of time to get used to that. I suppose the only bonus that we do have is, in conditions like this, generally we don't bowl as much as fast bowlers, generally short spells. So I do have that on my side a little bit. But, it was my first bowl yesterday and first time with the group properly. I certainly was a little bit sore this morning after my first bowl, but having got into it today's session was a lot better and I felt much better for it. So, getting there, but probably slightly need a little bit more in the tank.
Yeah. You talked about your week. I mean, how's poor old Moeen doing, for goodness sake?
Yeah, poor bloke. He's obviously had it a little bit tough. Been in isolation since we got here, pretty much. Everyone's checking in with him, making sure he's okay. But yeah, I can only imagine really what he's going through. I did 7 days. He's obviously ended up doing a lot more than that. He had some symptoms which I think he's over now, which is good. But you don't wish this illness on anyone really. Thankfully, he's recovering pretty well. But yeah, I think he'll be excited to hopefully get out and get amongst the group again. It's definitely been a tough week or so, or longer than that for him.
And are you talking about him? I mean, are you somehow getting some sort of, I don't know, rotor up to talk to him? I mean, how are you all dealing with Moeen?
Yeah, I know everyone's I know a lot of the guys have been touching in with him. A few of the guys have rang him. I was in contact with him all last week, particularly whilst I was in isolation with us both. We were kind of talking through what we were up to. I know the guys are playing a lot of PlayStation with him as well and talking to him through the headsets. Trying to keep him busy as much as you can. But yeah, look, it's tricky, isn't it? I think these sort of times when you're having to kind of lock yourself away in a room, it's difficult for everyone. And I've certainly not kind of gone through that before, so it's kind of unprecedented times, as we know. But we're trying to get around him, and I know the docs are checking in with him, very frequently, a good few times a day to make sure he's okay. And we also have a psychologist here, which is certainly touching in with the players, not just Moeen, but also everyone as well.
Yeah. And the last one from me, Chris, if that's okay. I don't think you haven't played a test with Gaul, have you? I don't think you've played against Sri Lanka, have you? So I mean, how's Gaul looking? It's one of those badges of honour for people to go and watch the flags fluttering from the ramparts and everything else. I mean, you'll have heard so much about test matches there and so on. How's it looking at the moment? How's the pitch looking as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lovely cricket ground, is it? I was here on the last tour, we won 3-0, and I didn't play, but I was here on the tour. And I remember the Barmy Army obviously travelled in high numbers, and it's a great place to play cricket as an England cricketer because you get great support. The ground's packed. There's people sat on the top of the fort, and it's just very picturesque. And it's going to look a lot different this week with no one around and no crowds. So, which is a shame, obviously. We know everyone will be supporting us from back home, which is great. But the pitch, as you'd expect, it does look quite dry, as we probably expected it to. But what I will say is that it has obviously rained, as I mentioned before. It has rained quite a bit here in the last few days, which I think is quite unexpected. We didn't certainly expect it anyway. And the pitch this morning, early this morning, was kind of a little bit tacky, and spikes kind of just went into the surface. So whether that plays a part, I don't know. But as you'd expect, if there is some sun out, I'd imagine it'll be dry by the time we get to day one.
Thanks, Chris. Good to see you.
You too.
Cheers, Aggers. We'll go with John and then Scott, please.
Morning. Did you feel fine? Did you have any symptoms at all during that week?
No, John. No symptoms for myself, thankfully. Obviously, once I started self-isolating, I kind of, you do start to worry a little bit that you might have picked the virus up. And, you don't know at what point down the line that those symptoms are potentially going to start. So every time I woke up in the morning, I was kind of obviously just double checking myself over to make sure I didn't have any symptoms, and thankfully I haven't picked up any. And obviously I've had also 4 negative tests in the last week. So it's kind of become the norm now, but ideally not having 4 tests a week, that would be ideal, to be honest.
Can I just ask about the journey you made with Moeen to the airport? What sort of vehicle was it? A sort of minibus or?
Yeah, it was like a minibus, like a relatively smart van type thing. Obviously to get all our kit in, and then we were sharing the back of the car or the back of the van type thing. So it wasn't a tiny vehicle, but it was by no means a lorry size. But yeah, we shared a vehicle down. We took all precautions. We wore masks. And obviously kept our distance as much as we could, and obviously tried not to touch anything that either of us had touched. But you can only be so safe, I suppose. And it was obviously the right thing to do to isolate once I'd arrived here and figured out that Moeen was a positive test.
Just finally, if I may, obviously Ben Stokes is not there, so I guess there's more of a need for quick bowlers who can bat, and you come into that category clearly. So you might well have had a really good chance of making a contribution in this series. Yeah,
definitely. Look, I was turning up on tour, hoping to push for a place in the starting 11. Whether that happened or not, that was out of my control. But I was certainly hoping to try and force my way in. As you said, with no Stokesy here, it kind of emphasises that all-rounder role. Both myself and Sam Curran could potentially fill a certain slot in that 11 to balance the team a bit. And yeah, I was looking forward to trying to push my case. Still obviously trying to do that. Whether this week comes a bit too soon, probably likely, but moving forward for the rest of the series and hopefully in this series, I can try and force my way in. But yeah, a little bit frustrated that obviously I can't force my case for this first test, but kind of got my head around the situation and just have to move on.
Okay, we'll go with Scott and then Ali Martin, please.
Hey, Chris, you've seen with Sri Lanka's recent tour of South Africa and with Australia and India and Australia, there's a lot of injuries picked up by the fast bowlers, and that could be because you're in the bubble environment. Is there a concern for you guys that, especially with the amount of Test cricket you have in 2021, that there will be niggling injuries?
I don't know if... Yeah, I mean, look, there's always injuries. A busy schedule ahead. I think that's where your fitness and your S&C and your nutrition and, I suppose your professionalism all round comes into play. You have to try and look after yourselves, look after your bodies, do the right things, and then kind of it's out of your hands, you know what I mean? But I think I'm not sure the case with the Sri Lanka guys, but, we've obviously got a lot of tests coming up. There has been talk of rotation. There's been talk of giving guys breaks at certain times. And that's not just from a physical point of view, it's obviously from a mental side as well. So it's something we have to keep an eye on, yeah. But we kind of know as fast bowlers, occasionally you are going to pick up niggles and basically try and mitigate that risk as much as possible by doing the right things, listening to the experts and trying to follow, I suppose your programs, gym programs, nutrition, sleep, all those sort of things come into play. And we try and do that well. And I think we actually do that quite well as a team, to be honest.
And you talk about the busy 2021 in Test cricket for England as well. You got a T20 World Cup at the back end. Do you allow yourself to get excited by potentially what England can achieve this year?
I think it's hard to actually. It's hard to look that far ahead. We play a lot of cricket nowadays, and you kind of just look at what's in front of you. We've got a really exciting India series after the Sri Lanka series, but it's hard to even see that far ahead when you've got these 2 Test matches right in front of you. Of course, there's, I suppose, that opportunity that this England team and across all 3 formats could do something, really special across this year. But it is hard to try and focus on what's on at the end of the year when you've got such a big, winter for us here in terms of some subcontinent tours, followed up by a big English summer. It is really hard to look that far ahead, and you almost don't want to, although you do need to kind of start preparing. I think that's up for the management and those guys to prepare, more so for that side of things rather than the players. We have to focus on what's here and now and try and win these series in what's in front of us, because that'll give us good confidence and momentum to go through the year with.
And I was reading last week that Curtly Ambrose had applied to be the fast bowling coach with England, and I appreciate you can't talk about that case in point, but with the likes of him showing interest, Jacques around the camp now in Sri Lanka, what does it tell you about this England side that there are legends of the game wanting to work with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, that's brilliant. I think it shows that we've got such an exciting group of players, not just in the squads, but in depth as well. I think people see English cricket as all the teams and squads as an exciting group to work with, which is a real compliment to us as a team, and also to the management and staff as well, that we're getting the likes of those guys, like you say, those legends of the game, even interested in working with us, which is great. I mean, to have Callis here with us is just brilliant. I'm certainly, in awe of him. I actually worked with him at IPL KKR 2017, and it was fantastic to pick his brains there, and obviously to be able to continue that here in conditions which are very foreign to us. For him to share his wealth of knowledge is just fantastic. So it's really exciting for us as a team, and as I said, I think it's a big compliment to us as well. And
just finally from me, what are you expecting from Sri Lanka in this series, obviously coming off those 2 tests against South Africa?
I think it's hard to read into what's happened to them in South Africa. Obviously, there's a 2-match series. Very different conditions. They're very good in their own conditions, as most teams are. But in particular, for us as an English side coming to the subcontinent, it's always a tricky experience. It's a very different style of cricket. You have to be ready to play. You have to play the long game. You face a lot of spin. You're facing the conditions in terms of the heat. So it's always going to be a tough test. The Sri Lankans will be, or from what I've seen, people kind of say, well, they just got beat by South Africa, but in their own conditions, they're always going to be tricky to play against. So we'll have to be on the top of our game. We'll have to adapt to conditions. We're excited by the challenge as well.
Cheers, Chris.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go with Ali, and then we'll finish off with Savindi, please.
Hi, Chris. You made some decent progress overseas last winter in Hamilton and Joburg. I'm still wondering how much of this sort of upcoming subcontinental winter, how much of it is a motivation to really further your game overseas?
Yeah, it is. As I touched on earlier, I toured here last time when we won 3-0 and didn't play a game, and was working hard behind the scenes there to try and work on a few things. Particularly with the Kookaburra ball, which we all spoke about before. But yeah, like I said, made a few strides last winter, albeit by just a couple of test matches. But I think you just want, as a cricketer and as a player, you always want to be moving forward. And I'm certainly in that position of my career. I look up to the likes of Broad and Anderson. They're always looking to improve, never standing still. And I see myself in that same manner. Really, I need to keep adapting and trying to work on that away record, and here's no different. Last time I toured India, it was a tough tour, so I've got that in my sights as well. I'd like to obviously get in the team and try and put in some strong performances.
Oh, and also, what does an innings like the one at Old Trafford in the run chase against Pakistan, what does that do for you in terms of potentially batting as high as 7 in spinning conditions?
Well, I mean, that I look back on that knock as with fond memories. I think that partnership with Josh was one of the highlights of my Test career, particularly with the bat. But it only helps my case really. I think being able to score runs at batting at 7 or 8 is can be crucial to the team. In particular in these conditions, sometimes to get the balance of the team, you might not go with that extra batter. So yeah, I think ideally, if I can show what I can do in the nets here, and when I get the opportunity, scoring runs in these conditions as well against the spin, which I feel I do have a half decent game plan now. So hopefully I can to get out there and score some runs, and maybe that can help balance the team as well.
Cheers.
Okay, last one. We'll go with Savindi. Go ahead.
Thanks. I'm Revata from the morning newspaper Sri Lanka. Chris, hope you are doing all right. And my only one question from me. Galle International Stadium is one of the most picturesque and usually most attended venues in Sri Lanka. So playing entirely without any spectators, playing a tennis, playing on closed grounds.
Savindi, we can't hear you, mate. Try again. You might. I don't know if your connection's intermittent. I think it was just saying what it would be like playing on an iconic ground without any fans in there, Chris.
Yeah, it's going to be, as I touched on earlier. I think it's going to be a bit of a shame, really. Obviously, we're in the situation that we're in as a world right now. It's obviously a bit tricky that we're getting used to playing without fans. So I think as players we kind of just get used to it, and we've got to get used to it because we've still got a game to play and hopefully a game to win. But at the same time, it will be a very big shame to not have fans in at such a picturesque ground. As you say, it's a great place for us to play cricket. We've loved coming here in the past. I know the guys are excited to play on Thursday as well. But as you touched on, it's a real big shame that we're not going to have, one, our own travelling fans, but two, the locals as well. They always bring a great atmosphere to the ground. Really passionate about their cricket, support their team, and it creates a great atmosphere. So it's it really is a shame.
Okay, thanks, Wiz. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone else. Take care and all the best. Cheers.